Hello everyone, X-Wall-Kill Bethelite here. And there is a YouTuber called Lisa Haven. Lisa Haven has got about 481,000 subscribers. That's how many people pay attention to what it is Lisa Haven has to say. And she said something about Jehovah's Witnesses recently, and that had about 40,000 people look at that. Well, 40,000 people were just misinformed. There are 40,000 people that have just wasted their time because Lisa was saying something in regards to there are anti-Christian raids, and they are rounding up Christians and just putting them in prison and whatnot. Now, where does Lisa Haven base this information? Well, Jehovah's Witnesses. She bases it off of what's going on with Jehovah's Witnesses. Now, that is fake news at its finest. That is someone spreading misinformation. Jehovah's Witnesses get in trouble with authorities and other governments. Therefore, every Christian must be about to get in trouble with governmental authorities. That is baloney. I mean, think about it. Someone who has 481,000 subscribers. I've only seen one of her videos. And then I went and looked at her channel and just glanced at the titles of other videos. I don't know if she's the only one that does it. I'm guessing she is because it's the name of the channel is called Lisa Haven. So I'm guessing she's the only one that does it. So I'm directing this pretty much towards her. I hope all of her information is not as misinformed as the video on Jehovah's Witnesses. The concept that if Jehovah's Witnesses get in trouble with authorities, that means authorities all around the world are just rounding up Christians is the dumbest thing I have ever heard today. It's not the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life, but it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard today. Jehovah's Witnesses get in trouble with authorities because they refuse to obey the authorities in the various governments around the world where Jehovah's Witnesses practice their religion. People are free to practice religion in a number of countries, but there are rules that everybody, not just Christians, not just Jehovah's Witnesses, but everyone has to follow. So she mentioned, I think, Korea. Let's talk about Korea. In Korea, last time I was there, I was physically there. I don't know if Lisa Haven has even so much as talked to a former Jehovah's Witness or a Jehovah's Witness or knows anything about what's going on, but I was a Jehovah's Witness and I was physically in South Korea while I was dating someone there. And while there, I went to the prison and I talked to, I was literally behind a screen where there's a glass and there's a Jehovah's Witness that came on the other side, and you know the person that I was visiting in South Korea had to translate for me, and tears were coming down my eyes because this person is locked up, and the reason why they were locked up is because they refuse to follow the government's protocol. According to South Korea, everybody at a certain age has got to fulfill their obligations in regards to the military and the government. Jehovah's Witnesses knowingly, they know that if we do not do this, we will go to prison. They have chosen to go to prison. So Jehovah's Witness men in South Korea at around a certain age, the age that they're supposed to do the military service or what have you, they choose, yes, I'm going to go to prison. The reason why is because I choose to go against what the government is telling me is required. This has nothing to do with them rounding up some Christians, and it has everything to do with everybody in South Korea. Everybody in the entire country, Christian, Buddhist, whatever they are, all have to fulfill the requirements of military service. So if a Buddhist decides, hey, I'm not going to fulfill my obligations and I would prefer a prison sentence, does that mean Buddhists all around the world are being gathered up? Is there an anti-Buddhist campaign all around the world if that happens? This is something that Jehovah's Witnesses have been doing. This is something that former Jehovah's Witnesses have known about for quite some time. That if the government requires something of Jehovah's Witnesses, Watchtower oftentimes instructs them not to go along with it. Their allegiance is supposed to be with Watchtower. Jehovah's Witnesses are led by their corporation, which is Watchtower. That's where the allegiance lies, not with the particular governments. They choose this. Those Jehovah's Witnesses born in those countries are very well aware of what the law is, and they choose to break that law. And that's one of the reasons why there are issues in other countries, whether it be Russia, where Jehovah's Witnesses have had issues for a long time in Russia. And instead of trying to essentially practice their faith and obey the authority of the land, Jehovah's Witnesses oftentimes choose to rebel. And that's the reason why. It had nothing to do with them being some branch of Christianity. Lisa Havens, well, they're a branch of Christianity. They're a Christian. They're a branch of Christianity. That means they're all going after Christians. Are there 481,000 people that follow this mess? Is that the reason why we had people storming the Capitol? Because that many people will listen to anything that is claimed online? Now, I give some of those people a pass because that's the president, and the president's definitely capable of riling people up. And that's the reason why he's in an impeachment trial. Because they believe he riled them up. I think that's true. He riled them up. Whether or not he directly directed them to attack and assault and kill is up for question. But yes, he got them mad and got them riled up and sent them at the Capitol. But for someone to not know, even in America, for someone to not know why Jehovah's Witnesses have problems in other countries, even in America, Jehovah's Witnesses will not salute the flag. You have Jehovah's Witness kids who everybody else in the class is saying the Pledge of Allegiance. Why? Because they're Americans and they live in America, and their allegiance isn't with Germany or with Russia or with Japan, it's with America. So you think you would say the Pledge of Allegiance. No, Jehovah's Witnesses choose not to. Their allegiance is with Watchtower, which for them, there's no difference between Watchtower organization and God. Their allegiance is with Watchtower. To them, Watchtower is Jehovah. Jehovah speaks through Watchtower. There's no difference. There's no difference. So America is got to be the freest country there is. I mean, you can do anything you want. But if America had any kind of rigid guidelines in regards to Pledge of Allegiance, military service, or anything else, Jehovah's Witnesses would have problems here also, because they won't do the Pledge of Allegiance. They won't do any kind of military service. They will even put their life on the line not to take certain medical practices. People that die from not having blood transfusions because they're Jehovah's Witnesses and they refuse to have them, it's not because the hospitals are on an anti-Christian campaign and they're killing a bunch of Christians. No, it's because Jehovah's Witnesses choose not to have blood transfusions, and they know the result is going to most likely be their death. They are very well aware of this. This is not some conspiracy where people are rounding up Christians because this woman, I done forgot her name already, has figured out that, oh, Jehovah's Witnesses have been locked up somewhere. So that means there must be a global campaign to lock up every Christian. Why on earth wouldn't they just lock up everybody then? Why wouldn't they just grab a bunch of Jehovah's Witnesses and Baptists and Catholics and everybody else? Why would it just be Jehovah's Witnesses? Could it possibly be because Jehovah's Witnesses specifically have rules against following the guidelines of that specific country? The only reason they're not locked up in America is because in America, you can pretty much get away with virtually anything as long as it's your religious belief. In America, you can get away with pretty much any, so you can be anywhere. And when the Pledge of Allegiance is saying you can stand there and refuse to take part and nothing will happen. That's not the case everywhere. That is not the case in every single country. Every single country is not that way. So Jehovah's Witnesses choose to put themselves in harm's way in those particular countries. Those countries are not looking for Christians and just somehow keep coming up with Jehovah's Witnesses to lock up. No. Miss Haven. Those Jehovah's Witnesses clash with the government. The government ain't clashing with them. The government is requiring the same of Jehovah's Witnesses as they are for every other citizen. Every other religious group has got the same requirements. If Jehovah's Witnesses decide that they don't want to follow them, then that's the consequence for not following them. You guys can look it up if you want to, but you're just going to hear a bunch of garbage. Again, that's the only video I saw. I don't know if all the rest of them are just as full of baloney as this one, but my lands, you got that many people listening to information that is that wrong and that logically incorrect. Someone who chooses, because of their religion, Watchtower directs people to disobey the governments in their particular lands, and then Watchtower, uses the Oh, we're persecuted. No, you ain't persecuted. You're choosing not to follow the rules. You're not persecuted. You're choosing not to follow the rules. Otherwise, there would be cells full of just Christians in general, not just Jehovah's Witnesses. If there was a global campaign to rile up Christians, why on earth would they even be aware of one of the smallest groups, this cult called Jehovah's Witnesses? Well, let's start with the cult called Jehovah's Witnesses. Why would they even do that? Why would they even know that they even exist? This small little sect of religious people. The reason they know they exist is because they're refusing to follow the rules, and therefore they have to, have the consequences of not following those rules. All this old Russia, the entire country of Russia, this huge country of Russia, just ups and decides that you got all these religious people. Well, Jehovah's Witnesses, well, we just don't like them in specific. Let's just go after them. No, it's because Jehovah's Witnesses are doing something they shouldn't be doing. In Australia, there was the Australia Royal Commission, and that involved Jehovah's Witnesses and all these child sex abuse cases. Is it because Australia just up and just Jehovah's Witnesses in specific, they just don't like them? No. The same would happen to any group of people that had thousands of unreported child sex abuse cases like Jehovah's Witnesses do. So, as people like to say, you reap what you sow. And Jehovah's Witnesses reap what they sow. They are anti-government. Pretty much their religion states that any government is controlled by the devil. So no, they're not going to follow the rules of said government, and that's going to get them in trouble. And the leaders in Watchtower, their leadership, the people that they follow, are in America. They just so happen to be headquartered in America, where they don't have to get locked up. They don't have to suffer any consequences. So they don't care when they tell people all the way in Russia and all the way in South Korea that they have to do this or that, which will cause them to get locked up, because Stephen Lett is going to freely make all them weird facial expressions. See? He's not going to have to worry about being locked up. Tony Morris is going to freely go to liquor stores and buy up all the liquor. These are the leaders of this cult. Tony Morris is going to buy up all the liquor he wants and not worry about getting locked up. No. Watchtower directs Jehovah's Witnesses not to follow what these governments tell them to do. That's why they get locked up. Mrs. Haven. I forgot their name already. Whether it's Heather Haven or something like that. But I think you can probably find the video I'm talking about just by typing the name in. And to get that name, it's at the beginning of the video, because somewhere in between the video, I forgot her name. X-Wall Kill Bethelite signing out. 937-789-4029. We'll discuss it. And we will talk again soon.